Good morning, everybody. My name is Elena Popp, and I'm the Executive Director of the Eviction Defense Network. Buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Elena Popp y soy la directora de la Red de Defensa de Desalojos. We are a nonprofit agency that has been at the forefront of addressing displacement and gentrification in Los Angeles County since 2003. Somos una organización sin fines de lucro y hemos estado al frente de manejar o parar el desplazamiento y el aburguesamiento de nuestras comunidades desde el 2003. Today, we're going to talk about how you can deal with the stress of an eviction. Hoy vamos a hablar sobre cómo los inquilinos pueden manejar el estrés de un desalojo. The reason this is important is that stressed out people make terrible clients. La gente estresada son clientes muy malos. They make decisions based on fear. Hacen decisiones basado en el miedo instead of based on good information and power. En vez de basadas en buena información y poder. And why do people get so stressed out about housing insecurity? It's because it's the third most stressful life event you could have. ¿Y por qué se estresan tanto? Porque el desplazamiento es el tercer más estresante evento que pueden tener en su vida. Number one is death of a loved one. Number two is divorce. Number three is moving. 4 is a major illness. And 5 is job loss. Número 1 es la muerte de alguien, un ser querido. Divorcio es 2. Tener que mudarse es 3. Y una enfermedad grave, 4. Y perder empleo, 5. This means that we're more afraid of moving than we are of dying. Tenemos más miedo de tener que mudarnos de que morir. And this moving includes voluntary moving. Eso incluye tener que mudarse voluntariamente. Most of you are facing involuntary moving. La mayor parte de ustedes están enfrentando la falta de control sobre el hecho de que se tienen que mudar. For more information, this is a very good article. Para más información, pueden leer ese artículo. Housing insecurity affects all elements of our life. La inseguridad sobre la vivienda afecta a todos los elementos de nuestra vida. Children who are faced with overcrowded conditions or the threat of the loss of their home. Los niños que enfrentan vivir en condiciones malas o perder la vivienda do not do well in education. No pueden progresar en su educación. That affects job security. Eso afecta la seguridad de un trabajo. Job security also affects housing insecurity. Cuando uno no tiene un trabajo fijo, también eso afecta la habilidad de mantener su vivienda. I once represented a guy who got sick for 3 days, was $56 short in his rent and almost lost his below market rent controlled apartment. Una vez representé una familia donde el papá se enfermó por 3 días, le faltaba $56 para completar su renta y el dueño trató de desalojarlo para poder subir la renta. So job and housing insecurity are interconnected. Affordable housing, health problems, social isolation, low wages, and lack of health care are all interconnected, and they're also interconnected with food security. La falta de vivienda tiene conexión con problemas de salud, con ser aislados, bajos ingresos, falta de cuidado médico y la inseguridad de la comida. And people who are poor live 10 years longer than people who are rich, which is an illustration of the health issues. La gente que vive en pobreza viven 10 años menos que la gente que tiene dinero. Children that are facing housing insecurity feel excluded, conflicted, embarrassed, insecure. They don't do well in school. Los niños que enfrentan pobreza y la inseguridad de vivienda se sienten excluidos, en conflicto, les da pena, no pueden hacer bien en la escuela. We need to deal with all of these issues. But the main thing you should be walking away from in this presentation is that this is not your fault. Eso no es la culpa de ustedes. a lot of times people who are facing eviction and who are feeling housing insecurity also feel guilty about it. Muchas veces la gente que enfrente la inseguridad de la vivienda y desalojos se sienten culpables. This is not your fault. This is the fault of a system that puts profits over people. Ese es el resultado de un sistema que pone la ganancia de dinero es más importante que la seguridad y el bienestar de la gente. This also illustrates how a housing insecurity relates with, interacts with economic insecurity and personal insecurity. You have to move, so now you're not in, you get displaced from your community, and then you feel insecure, and relationships break down, etc. Ese artículo también habla de cómo están interaccionados la falta de seguridad de vivienda con la inseguridad económica y la inseguridad personal. And what causes this? ¿Y qué causa esto? Well, a big part of it is that income has stayed very flat. Los ingresos se han mantenido muy flat, muy planos, mientras que las rentas han subido. Well, rents have gone up and housing purchase prices have gone up, y también el precio de comprar una casa. And then the pandemic hits. And in April and May of 2020, 365,000 households in LA were facing potential eviction, an eviction tsunami. Luego viene COVID y 365,000 viviendas en el condado de Los Ángeles enfrentando desalojo. Una tsunami de desalojos es lo que estábamos esperando. And by June of 2020, it was nearly 500,000. Para junio del 2020, casi 500,000. But we mobilized, pero nos movilizamos. We mobilized and we've passed a whole bunch of laws. Nos movilizamos y pasamos una bola de leyes that really do protect tenants, que sí protegen inquilinos. And they created a safety net. Es como una red de seguridad. And that was done by organizations like the tenants unions, which are down here, organizaciones como los sindicatos de inquilinos, and organizations like Eastside Leads and Inquilinos Unidos, and a whole bunch of other organizations that are involved in the Right to Housing Coalition. Y también organizaciones como Eastside Leads y Inquilinos Unidos y la Coalición para la Sobrevivencia Económica, que son parte de una coalición que les voy a explicar en un momento. Statewide, there are 2 organizations that organize tenants al nivel estatal. Hay 2 organizaciones que organizan inquilinos. The Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, la Alianza de Californianos para el Empoderamiento de la Comunidad, and Tenants Together, Tenants Together. It is essential that you get involved in one of these organizations. Es esencial que se involucre en una de estas organizaciones. Because without your involvement, we can't pass stronger laws. Si no se involucran, no podemos pasar leyes más fuertes. A lot of these organizations have formed the Right to Counsel Coalition. Muchas de esas organizaciones han formado el Right to Counsel Coalition. That coalition is dedicated to ensuring that every tenant that goes to court has a lawyer. La meta de la organización es que todos los inquilinos que van a corte tengan un abogado, and that there are resources for organizing and education, y que también tengamos recursos para organizar a la gente y educar a la gente. Organize, change laws, educate the tenants about the laws, and protect them with lawyers. Movilizar a la gente, cambiar las leyes, educar a la gente sobre las leyes, y también tener derecho a un abogado. The Right to Counsel Coalition has developed a program with funding from the City of LA, the County of LA, and a couple of other cities called Stay Housed LA. You access it at stayhousedla.org. El Right to Counsel Coalition ha creado este programa, quedarencasa.com, quedarencasa.com. And it's a website that basically connects you to an organization that does tenants' rights organizing and a legal services program so that we can help you solve your problem. Es una organización que los conecta a un programa de que organiza inquilinos y a un programa que representa en corte para poder resolver su problema and to prevent displacement, para prevenir el desplazamiento. This has created, as I said before, a safety net. Hemos creado una red de seguridad, but it's not so strong like the one in the previous picture. No tan fuerte como la que está en la otra foto. There are holes in our safety net. Sí hay hoyos en nuestro safety net. You are here, so you are likely to be one of the people that fall squarely on the net. Están aquí y probablemente van a ser uno de los que cae fijamente seguro. But if you are not connected, si no se conectan, then you could be one of these people that fall through the cracks. And the reason our safety net has so many holes is because we're in a health crisis, an economic crisis. Nearly 500,000 households can't pay their rent. Harassment is on the rise. Even though legal filings in court are down, landlords are harassing tenants into moving. Illegal lockouts are on the rise. Laws are confusing. The protections expire, then they're extended, and then they're changed, and they're weakened, they're strengthened. So there's a lot of confusion, and there's not enough legal assistance. Estamos en la red es débil, no tiene sus huecos. ¿Por qué? Porque estamos en medio de una crisis de salud, una crisis económica. Hay 500,000 de viviendas que todavía no han podido pagar su renta. El hostigamiento ha aumentado tremendamente. Harassment is up by 352% from pre-COVID numbers. 352% incrementación en hostigamiento. Illegal lockouts are up 75% since before COVID. Los bloqueos ilegales 75% que antes de COVID. Las leyes son confusas, las protecciones se extienden, se paran, se hacen más fuertes, se hacen más débiles, es difícil entenderlas y no hay suficiente ayuda legal. But there is hope, and certainly there is hope for you. Pero hay esperanzas y hay esperanzas para ustedes. I encourage you to please come to these webinars on a regular basis. Les pido que vengan a estos webinarios regularmente. Kevin is going to put them on the chat right now, so you'll have the links. Kevin los va a poner en el chat para que tengan los ingresos. Every Tuesday at 6 p.m., I do a webinar with ACE in Spanish. Todos los martes a las 6 hacemos un webinar con ACE en español. And Thursdays, it's in English. Y los jueves a las 5 en inglés. And every Saturday at 1 p.m. with the Pasadena Tenants Union and Kevin on Tech. Y cada sábado a la 1 con el Pasadena Tenants Union y con Kevin ayudando con la tecnología, 1 p.m. Then on Saturdays, this is where you are right now. Los sábados en la mañana, aquí es donde están ahorita. And every Saturday we do this. And then I have office hours, meaning you can come and talk to me on Mondays and Wednesdays, not Fridays. We keep correcting these slides and they keep getting uncorrected. Mondays and Wednesdays at 6 p.m. On Fridays, on the same link, we now have a support group for tenants led by tenants. Los viernes en el mismo enlace, en vez de hacer una presentación, hacemos un grupo de apoyo para inquilinos. I assure you that if you participate in these webinars and in these, one-on-one settings, you will do well in this process, no matter how stressful you are. Stressed out you are. Les aseguro que si participan, les va a salir bien. Part of the reason is that we reduce the stress. Reducimos el estrés. We give you information to make you feel powerful. Les damos información para que se sientan poderosos. Power and knowledge are interrelated. El poder y el conocimiento son interrelacionados. So if you have good information, if you know your rights, if you know what's happening in the process, you will be less stressed out. You will be able to make better decisions. Si tienen información, saben lo que va a pasar en el proceso, van a tener menos estrés y van a hacer mejores decisiones. All of these workshops are recorded. Todos estos talleres están grabados. And they are on YouTube. Están en YouTube. And I think we now have a Spanish one as well. Ahorita ya tenemos uno en español también. And Kevin is going to put those in the chat. So you can, and then this one will go on YouTube and you can watch it again. Esta la vamos a poner en YouTube, la pueden ver otra vez. And people often ask me, how many times do I have to come? ¿Cuántas veces necesito ir? And my answer is until you can teach it. Mi respuesta es hasta que puedan ser la persona que hace la presentación. You need to know all of this stuff very, very intimately. So you need to watch these presentations. Necesitan conocer, saber, entender, y los tienen que ver varias veces para poder entender. Now, where do you get legal help? ¿A dónde logran tener ayuda legal? You can go to stayhousedla.org. Pueden ir a stayhousedla.org, quedarencasa.com o quedarencasa.com. Y ahí, si ponen Know Your Rights, si aquí ven, pueden empuchar el botón Know Your Rights. If you go to Know Your Rights, you can find out a summary of the law, un sumario de la ley. You can also find other workshops. Pueden encontrar otros talleres. And you can also get legal help. Y pueden pedir ayuda legal. Now, in an ideal world, at the first sign of trouble with your landlord, we'd assign you an organizer and a lawyer, and we'd go deal with it. En un mundo ideal, al primer señal de un problema con el dueño, les daríamos acceso a un organizador y a un abogado para manejar el problema. But we don't live in an ideal world. Pero no vivimos en un mundo ideal. And unfortunately, there is more need than there are people to help. Hay más necesidad que gente para ayudar. And that means you have to help yourself. Eso quiere decir que se tienen que ayudar sí mismos. We do not assign a lawyer to you unless the case is in eviction court. No asignamos abogado o abogada hasta que el caso esté en la corte de desalojo. But from the moment you start having problems with your landlord until you're in eviction court, you need to come to the webinars and to the one-on-one consultations to get help. Antes de que se convierta en un caso de desalojo, la única manera de recibir ayuda es en los webinars y en las consultas de uno a uno que acabo de mostrar. The Right to Counsel Coalition has basically divided up the 11 eviction courts. Esta coalición ha dividido las 11 cortes. There are 11 courts in the county that handle eviction cases. Hay 11 cortes en el condado que maneja casos de desalojo. Downtown, la del centro de Los Ángeles, West Covina, Pasadena, Lancaster, Van Nuys, Chatsworth, Santa Monica, Inglewood, Long Beach, Norwalk y Compton. En esas áreas hay cortes. So the Pasadena court handles a good part of the area in the northeast part of the county, and then northwest part of the county, and the Covina court, the northeast part of the county. Así es que cada una de estas cortes maneja áreas. Por ejemplo, Pasadena, la parte del noroeste del condado, West Covina, noreste del condado. These two courts split up the valley. Estas tres cortes dividen el Valle de San Fernando, etc. In each of these courts, we have member agencies providing services. Y en cada una de estas cortes tenemos agencias que están proveyendo ayuda. If you go on stayhousedla.org, you will be assigned to one of these legal services programs. Si van en stayhousedla.org o quedarencasa.com, les van a asignar uno de estos servicios. You will get an organizer assigned to you, and you will get a lawyer assigned to you. Organizador y abogado. The Eviction Defense Network, which is my agency, represents tenants in downtown LA, Pasadena, and West Covina. Representamos gente en downtown, Pasadena, y West Covina. And in Compton, if they are LA residents. Y en Compton, si son residentes de la ciudad de Los Ángeles, not the county, not another city that feeds into the Compton court, but the city of LA. No el condado, ni siquiera otra ciudad que tiene casos en la corte de Compton, pero tienen que ser residentes de Los Ángeles. To get services from us, you go to edn.la. Para servicios de nosotros, van a edn.la. You fill out a eviction prevention form at the bottom right of the first page. Llenan un formulario para ser asignados a nosotros. You wait for a response. Esperan una respuesta. If you do not get a response, you can come to a webinar or you can come on Monday or Wednesday at 6 p.m. because sometimes we do fall behind. Si no les respondemos en 48 horas, pueden venir a un webinario o pueden enlazarse el lunes o miércoles a las 6 y luego, porque a veces nos atrasamos, hay mucha necesidad. We fall behind, there is a lot of need. People facing immediate lockouts can use this number. La gente que está enfrentando un bloqueo inmediato pueden usar este número. 213-340-4714. 213-340-4714. That goes into a 24-hour cell phone. Ese es un celular que se contesta 24 horas al día. You are going to wake someone up if you call at 2 in the morning. Van a despertar a alguien si llaman a las 2. So don't call. I have a 3-day notice. Tengo una nota de 3 días. That's not an emergency lockout. Eso no es una emergencia. An emergency is the landlord is there and literally dragging you out by force. El dueño está ahí y literalmente los está echando con fuerza without a court process, sin un proceso de corte. If you call this number, at the beginning of the pandemic, we were sending out organizers that would then stop the owner, like 10 or 20 people would show up and they would stop the owner or even put you back in if you'd already been locked out and you could prove you were a tenant. Al principio de la pandemia, si llamaban este número, teníamos 10, 20 organizadores y inquilinos que iban a su casa y paraban el bloqueo, o si ya estaban afuera, los metíamos otra vez, and then we would wait for the landlord to call the police, and then we would advocate with the police. El dueño llamaba a la policía, abogábamos con la policía. We had like 100% success rate. We had, I think, 2 cases out of hundreds that did not keep the tenant in place. Tuvimos como 2 casos de cienes donde no lo logramos. Unfortunately, those volunteers are now not as available. Esos voluntarios ya no están tan disponibles. And so now what we do when you call in is we try to negotiate with the landlord. Ahora tratamos de negociar con el dueño. That has a much lower success rate. Eso tiene éxito en menos casos, about 32% success rate. And so then you have to sue the landlord. Tienen que demandarlo. And it's harder to get you back in. Más difícil lograr que entren. This number right here, 888-694-0040, este número 888-694-0040, really is for people with digital divide and literacy issues. Es para gente que no sabe cómo usar el internet o no puede leer y escribir. I'm very tough on people on this digital divide issue. Para mí, yo soy muy fuerte con la gente. There is no reason for anyone to have a digital divide issue. No hay ninguna razón para que tengan un problema con acceso al internet. Before the pandemic, I was very adverse to learning how to use the internet. Antes de la pandemia, sabía poco sobre el internet. I could do Facebook, I could do Twitter, podía hacer Facebook y Twitter. I could do my email, mi correo electrónico, but if I needed to do anything else, I would ask the staff member to do it. Si tenía que hacer otras cosas, like Zoom, I would le pedía a un miembro de mi staff que lo hicieron. And one of the jokes in my office is when we got the ability to do legal research on the internet, one of my staff members came in to ask me, to teach me. And I told her that I already knew how. And she said, you do? Yeah, I send you an email on the internet and you do the research. Una de las bromas en mi oficina es que cuando compramos el programa para poder hacer research en el internet, una de mis staff vinieron a hablar conmigo y para enseñarme. Y les dije, ya sé cómo. ¿Cómo? ¿Sabes? Sí, te mando un correo electrónico y tú haces el research. That's how adverse I was to learning. But we can't be adverse to learning in a world that is so reliant on the internet. No podemos tenerle miedo al internet en un mundo donde tenemos tanta necesidad. There are governments you can get, if you don't have a smartphone, you can get one from the government. Si no tienen un smartphone, pueden conseguir uno del gobierno. I believe it's safelink.gov. Pueden ir a safelink.gov and apply for a government cell phone. So the only people who should be using this line are people who can't read and write. Las únicas personas que deben de estar usando esta línea es gente que no puede leer ni escribir. This is not a shortcut to getting help. No es más rápido por la línea. It's slower. Es más lento because people use it and then there's a waiting list porque la gente lo usa mucho y hay una lista de espera. Going into stayhousela.org and asking for help directly on the website is faster. Entrando al website a quedarencasa.com y pedir ayuda ahí mucho más rápido. This is the eviction process. Este es el proceso de desalojo. Right now, Kevin is going to put the 4 links to the longer presentation that talks about the eviction process. Ahorita Kevin va a poner los links en el chat de la presentación más larga sobre el proceso de desalojo. It starts with a notice, and then you get a summons and complaint, and if you answer, tenants do well in this process with lawyers. Empieza con una notificación, luego una queja de desalojo, y si hacen una respuesta con la ayuda de un abogado, entonces van a hacer bien en el proceso. If you don't answer, if you go to court alone, or if you have a bad case and you don't listen to your lawyer, si no contestan, si van a corte solos o si tienen un caso que no se puede ganar y no le hacen caso a su abogado, then the sheriff will lock you out. El alguacil los puede desalojar. Eden has an overall 98% success rate. Eden tiene un éxito en 98% de los casos. That means that we either win or settle the case in a way that the tenant is happy 98% of the time. Eso quiere decir que o ganamos y el inquilino se queda, we win and the tenant stays, o llegamos a un acuerdo que le beneficia al inquilino. We have an overall 89% success rate in trials. Tenemos éxito en 89% de los juicios. But overall, 98%. En total, 98%. With a lawyer, tenants do better. Less than 2% of tenants that go to court alone win. Menos de 2% de los inquilinos que van a corte solos. With a lawyer, the success rate is as high as 98%. Con abogado, el éxito es 98%. That's not a guarantee. The best case can be lost, the worst case can be won. No es una garantía. El peor caso se puede ganar y el mejor caso se puede perder. But it does give you an idea of what the difference is with or without a lawyer. Pero eso sí les da idea de las diferencias con abogado y sin abogado. When you first come to us, cuando primero vienen con nosotros, we ask you to pick a path. Les pedimos que escojan un camino. To the left, a la izquierda, is fight to stay for your unit. Quedarse en la unidad. Luchar para quedarse. That is our preferred path. Eso es lo que nosotros queremos, because every tenant that moves out of a unit, the landlord can raise the rent to the next tenant, and that's the main reason that housing prices are going up. Porque cada inquilino que se mueve le da el derecho al dueño a aumentar la renta para esa unidad cuando venga el nuevo inquilino, y esa es la razón principal que están subiendo tanto los precios de la renta. But the decision is yours, and if you want to move, then we figure out whether that's the right choice. Si se quieren salir, eso es decisión de ustedes y vemos qué trato podemos hacerles. We talk to you about your choice. Les hablamos de su choice. For instance, if you want to stay and you have a very, very bad case because you blew it, because you did, beat up your neighbor. Si tienen un mal casa y no podemos ganar porque sí le dieron golpes al vecino, then we're going to probably be going on this path. Vamos probablemente ir a la derecha y mudarnos. But we have been managing to keep people in their units for a really, really long time. Hemos podido lograr mantener la persona en su unidad por muchísimo tiempo while we figure out how we're going to transition them out to another housing. Mientras que desciframos cómo vamos a hacer la transición a otra vivienda. This is not an ideal situation, no es una situación ideal. It will continue to be stressful. Sí, van a continuar a tener el estrés, but with knowledge and information, you have less stress. Con información, tienen menos estrés, okay? And knowing what your road is a way to have less stress, because then you're less insecure. You're more secure. Habiendo escogido un camino, menos estrés, porque están más seguros. And in deciding what path you should be on, we look at 16 factors. En decidir qué camino deben de tomar, vemos a 16 factores, 16 cosas. And I'm not going to go over them here. No lo voy a hacer aquí. I want you to watch the other 4 videos that Kevin is going to put in the chat again. Quiero que vean los otros videos que Kevin va a poner en el chat de nuevo. Those 4 videos are very similar in structure. Tienen la misma estructura, but we talk about different examples in each one. Hablamos de diferentes ejemplos. Should you watch all 4? Why not? Deben de ver los 4. ¿Por qué no? It's good information, it's buena información, and if you hear it 4 times, you will absorb it by the 4th time. Si la oyen 4 veces, la van a absorber. In that presentation, and also in the presentation that Kevin is going to put in the chat right now, we explain the laws. En esa presentación y también en la presentación que Kevin va a poner en el chat ahorita, explicamos las leyes. The laws that existed before COVID, las que existían antes de COVID, and the ones that exist because of COVID, y las que existen porque tenemos COVID. But I really, really want to stress that no matter, that the combination of those laws and of rental assistance, of the ability to have a lawyer, all very important. La combinación de esas leyes, la habilidad de tener ayuda de un abogado, muy importantes, but the key to success is organizing. Pero la clave es organizar, to become part of a organization that helps tenants, that organizes tenants, hacerse parte de una organización que organiza a inquilinos. 2 reasons, 2 razones. First, because it'll make you more powerful. You surround yourself with 300 powerful tenants, nothing else happens but you becoming also powerful. Si se rodean de inquilinos poderosos, ustedes se convierten en inquilinos poderosos. And a whole bunch of powerful tenants get us better laws, more protection. Inquilinos poderosos logran fuertes leyes, más protección. This again is the eviction process, just to show you that there are many, many steps. El proceso de desalojo para mostrarles que hay muchos pasos, and in each step we can negotiate. En cada paso podemos negociar. I've negotiated great deals even after we lost. He negociado muchos buenos tratos hasta después de perder, because we always have the threat of an appeal, porque tenemos la posibilidad de hacer una apelación. It is important that you watch the other video where we explain in detail all of these notices. En el otro video explicamos en detalle todas estas notificaciones, so that when you call for help, you don't say, I have a 5-day notice. Para que cuando llamen por ayuda no digan, tengo una nota de 5 días. 5-day notice is. No tengo idea que es una 5-day notice. It could be the one at the very, very beginning, because that could be a 3, a 30, a 60, a 90, 120. Many possibilities. Puede ser esta al principio, porque hay muchas posibilidades, 3, 5, 15, 30, 60 días. It could be the actual summons and complaint, which has a 5 working day filing deadline. Puede ser la queja de desalojo, que tiene un plazo de 5 días hábiles para archivar una respuesta en la corte, 5 days to file an answer with the court. Or it could be this last notice from the sheriff, o puede ser esta del sheriff. Very different responses if it's this one, or this one. Lo que hacemos, what we do, is very different depending on which state you're in. Lo que hacemos es muy diferente dependiendo si están aquí, aquí o acá. So you need to know the notices. Necesitan entender las notificaciones. Oh, it could also be the courtesy notice from the court. También puede ser una carta de cortesía de la corte. So there's 4 possibilities it could be. So you need to understand the difference between this and 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 this. Oops, not that. Así es que tienen que entender la diferencia entre todos esos papeles. You will learn that by watching the 4 videos that Kevin is going to put on the chat again. Aprenden eso viendo los 4 videos que Kevin va a poner en el chat. Okay. And here they are as well. These are the recordings. Aquí están otra vez los recordings. This is a new part of the presentation. This is a sheet that we hand to all of our clients. Esta es una hoja que le damos a todos nuestros clientes. It's called Proving Your Case. What evidence do you need? Comprobando su caso, ¿qué evidencia necesitas? For each type of case, we mark out what you could need, depending on why you're being evicted. Cada tipo de caso, marcamos qué necesitan, depende en la razón que los están desalojando. Like, let's say, for instance, you're being evicted because they say you are not a tenant there. Supongamos que los están desalojando porque no son inquilinos ahí. And you've lived there I just had this case. You've lived there for 40 years. Has vivido por 40 años. Well, you got to prove that. Hay que comprobar eso. If I had to prove that, because I tend to collect paper, I'd have boxes and boxes and boxes of bills and utility bills and letters. Yo tendría cajas y cajas y cajas de biles de servicios, de cartas, el acuerdo, recibos de renta, rent receipts, the rental agreement. I just did this for a client who never signed a lease. Lo acabo de defender un inquilino que nunca firmó un contrato. He couldn't find any of his canceled checks or receipts. No podía encontrar cheques cancelados o recibos. The utilities are in the owner's name. Los servicios en el nombre del dueño. Like, you know, eventually we found both the ex-owner and some canceled checks. Eventualmente sí encontró sus cheques cancelados y también encontramos el antiguo dueño. So the other side gave up. El otro lado se rindió. But really, you need to really go everywhere throughout your house and find everything that exists and bring it into the office. Tienen que encontrar todos los papeles que existen para comprobar su caso y traerlos a la oficina. And then we decide what we're going to use or not. And this is the second page of that list, including identifying your witnesses. La segunda página de esa lista, incluso identificando sus testigos. And then we also give all our clients this victory depends on you handout. También les damos esta hoja que dice la victoria depende en usted. You need to bring us the evidence, how to reach your legal worker, how to keep your record clean, saving your rent, or applying for rental assistance. And very, very important, the deadline to apply for rental assistance is April 1st. Let's just say March 31st. El plazo para aplicar para la ayuda de revocación es el 1 de marzo. Mejor hacerlo mucho antes. Do it way before that. Maybe somebody can there are workshops that are happening all over LA County to help people fill out the paperwork. If somebody has access to that, please put it in the chat. If not, I'll do it when we're done. Hay una lista de talleres. Vayan si están teniendo dificultad. If you are COVID impacted and you are behind in your rent, you need to apply for rental assistance. Necesitan aplicar si han sido impactados por COVID y no tienen su renta. When you apply, you get some eviction protection. Cuando aplican, hay algo de protección contra desalojos And it also will help get rid of your rent debt y ayuda a deshacerse de la deuda. We always recommend that our tenants look for housing. Recomendamos que busquen vivienda. Why? Because either you're going to find something, van a encontrar algo. Doubtful, right now it's really hard. Lo dudo, porque ahorita es difícil. But it'll also give you fire in the belly to fight for your housing. Les da la energía para luchar por su vivienda. People don't realize how hard it's going to be to move. La gente no se da cuenta que tan difícil va a ser mudarse until they start looking, hasta que empiecen a buscar. And then you bring us the evidence because you got motivated to fight. Y luego sí nos traen la evidencia porque se motivan a luchar. This again explains how you can speak to your lawyer if you are represented by Eden. Como puedo hablar con mi abogado? We're going to talk, it talks a little bit about what happens in the court before the trial. Explico un poco qué pasa en la corte antes del juicio, and then what happens at the trial, lo que pasa en el juicio, and a little bit about testifying, y un poquito sobre cómo testificar. Testifying is very special. Testificar en corte es muy especial. You don't just get to tell the story. No pueden nada más decir lo que les pasó. It's done through questions and answers. Se hace por preguntas y respuestas. And you have to answer the question. Y tienen que contestar la pregunta. Only the question. Solamente la pregunta. So if the question is, do you know what color the sky is right now? The answer is not blue. Si la pregunta es, ¿qué color es el cielo ahorita? La respuesta no es azul or gray o gris. It's yes or no. Es sí o no. And then if the lawyer wants to know what color you think the sky is, they'll ask you, what color is the sky? Si el abogado quiere saber qué color piensan que es el cielo, les va a preguntar, ¿qué color es el cielo? People will often just answer blue even on a rainy day and when they're inside. Muchas veces la gente contesta azul, aunque está lloviendo y están adentro. So then the lawyer is going to make you out to be a liar because you didn't really pay attention to what you were being asked. Entonces el abogado va a hacer que, pues, ¿cómo pueden saber que es azul si están adentro? And so you have to, how do you know it's blue if you're inside? You have to really think through your answers, okay? Listen carefully, answer carefully. Escuchar cuidadosamente y responder cuidadosamente. The other thing is that tenants who are under stress have a tendency to either bark, and then they did this, and then they did that, and they talk in a tone that is very, very kind of angry, and it's not very pleasant. Hablan en un tono muy agresivo, no muy placentero, and that annoys the judge, the jury, and frankly, your lawyer. Y eso es irritante al juez, al jurado, y también hasta, I listen to people bark at me all day. By the end of the day, my nerves are frayed. A mí todo el día me gritan los inquilinos because they're upset about their situations, porque están enojados por su situación. But it's hard to hear. Es difícil escucharlo, and you will not do in court if you continue doing that. Y no van a ser ver en corte si hacen eso. The other tendency is for people to whine through their testimony. La otra tendencia, or through their story. Andar muy whiny, that kind of thing, because you are dejected and you are stressed out and you feel defeated porque se sienten derrotados y están estresados, but also not pleasant. Everybody wants a winner. People want to vote for the person who has this tone of voice. Los jurados quieren votar para la parte en el conflicto que tiene esta voz. A calm voice, a soft voice, a lower timbre voice. Una voz más baja, más nivelada y suave. So you need to practice talking like that. This is not my normal voice. My normal voice is a little pressured like this. Mi voz normal es un poquito apresurada como esta, but when I'm in court, this is me. Cuando estoy en corte, esta soy la que presenta, because this is the winning voice, porque esa es la voz que gana. And if you can master all of that, and we look at the 16 factors, si pueden manejar todo eso y analizamos los 16 factores, you won't get to this place where the sheriff puts a notice to vacate on your door. No van a llegar a ese lugar donde el sheriff, el alguacil, pone esta nota y estas otras hojas en su puerta. And that's the goal of these workshops, so that you never see this, which is the note that gets put on the door after the sheriff locks you out. Y nunca van a ver esto, que es lo que ponen en la puerta después de que el alguacil los echa. Okay? So, what to do at what stage? ¿Qué van a hacer en cada nivel? And I'm going to test you on this as soon as we're over. So everybody pay attention here. Vamos a hacer un test para ver si escucharon. Before there's a notice, if it's harassment, then we want you to come to the one-on-one consultations and office hours. Antes de una notificación o si es una notificación del dueño, van a venir a las consultas y office hours. Okay. If you have a summons or you've gotten anywhere here, then we will open a case. That's what retained means. Si ya están en corte, vamos a abrir un caso. Okay. Harassment, illegal lockouts, utility terminations. Again, it's the one-on-one consultations and office hours. Hostigamiento, bloqueos ilegales, terminación de servicios, cualquier cosa antes de la notificación, van a ir a los webinars y a las horas de servicio. Again, we are part of the Right to Counsel Coalition. Again, to repeat, to get help from the Eviction Defense Network, this is the process. Para recibir ayuda del Eviction Defense Network, ese es el proceso. If you are not in one of our courts, or if you are okay with having any lawyer represent you from the coalition, which you should be okay with, where everyone is very good, then you want to go to stayhousedla.org. Si están en nuestras cortes, pueden pedir directamente aquí, o también pueden ir a stayhousedla.org, y si están en otras cortes, stayhousedla.org o quedarencasa.com. Again, here are the webinars. Again, here are, oops, I think that was a tan. What happened? Here are the webinars. And I like this saying, there may be times when we are powerless to prevent injustice, but there must never be a time when we fail to protest. Hay a veces que no podemos prevenir la injusticia, pero siempre tenemos que hacer la lucha. And when we fight, we win. Cuando luchamos, ganamos. And thank you very much for your attention. Let's end the recording.